So if you haven't already heard, my good friends and the very fine folks, Benjamin and James over at Morningstar Engineering have just released their firmware 3.9 update for their line of MIDI controllers, which are the MC3, MC6 Mark II, and MC8, which is their flagship controller. I'm very fortunate to have both an MC6 and an MC8 here in the studio, and I get really excited when these guys release a new firmware for these products. I use the MC8 constantly on my HX Stomp board, and it has really given me the ability to make the HX Stomp so much more powerful. And I can do full performances, full gigs, rehearsals with nothing but my little HX Stomp board. In large part thanks to the fact that I have the MC8, and they just added some features to this that makes it even quicker to use, more effortless, and some really cool functionality. So this is a very in-depth, large firmware update. I am not going to be able to go through every feature, but I thought I would take you through some of my favorites and some that might help you too, especially if you're using your Morningstar MIDI controller with Helix or an HX Stomp. Some of these features you might find very useful. So I don't know how they keep doing it, but they just keep making an already incredible line of products that much better with these very regular free updates. What a wonderful company. I'm so glad to call these guys friends and to use their products. I have my little MC6 right here. It's already been updated to the latest firmware. I also have my HX Stomp board hooked into the computer with the MC8. That's what I'm going to be demonstrating on today. There is going to be one feature I'm going to show you that is not for the MC8, that's only for the MC3 and MC6. So without further ado, let's dive into some of these great new features. So here I am in the Morningstar MIDI editor, and they've made some really wonderful changes to the editor, especially just workflow enhancements. And again, I'm not going to be able to cover all of them, but I'm actually set on an HX Stomp preset right now that I use for rehearsal and live performances. And this is the corresponding settings I use on the MIDI controller. But you'll notice right over here, I have this set up to handle snapshots on my HX Stomp. But you'll notice here that right now to the left of where we used to add our CC number and CC values and all our parameters for that particular message, we have Open Midi Dictionary and Open User Library. This is really cool stuff because now without having to toggle over here to our MIDI Dictionary, which we used to have to do, and then select a device, we could do this. This was a really wonderful feature. You know, I could say, oh, HX Stomp, and then here we have, you know, all of the CC numbers and what we can do with them for our looper control and whatnot. Now, right from the preset itself, I can just go Open Midi Dictionary, and a pop-up comes up that I can select the device right from here. I can select the model, HX Stomp, I can select the parameter, and let's say I wanted this to be used for tap tempo. As soon as I click that and I say apply, it populates everything that I needed to do without me having to enter the values or just go to the MIDI dictionary, find the values, remember them, enter them properly. So this is one of the most useful features I could have ever imagined. And it makes the job of editing your Morningstar pedal that much easier. Now, also, you'll notice it says Open User Library. So let's talk about what the user library is first. If we come up to our main tabs up here, you'll notice it has User Library. If I click that, it gives us two selections. It has PC messages and CC messages. So let's say that there was a set of CC messages I used all the time. I can come into my own user library, much like we have the MIDI dictionary that they've given us preset settings that we can just populate into where we need them. I can add my own custom ones. So I could say, let's say I always use one with a CC message of 11 and a CC value of 0 on channel 1. And let's call this wah on, and then I'll add that. And then I will add another one with CC number 11 with a value of, let's say, 127, and I'll call that wah off. And I add that. Now when I'm over at my preset that I'm working on, I can open the user library and I can select copy, and you'll notice that this changes to the values that I want it to change to just from my user library. So an immensely useful feature if you find yourself creating and using the same messages a lot. We can create our own user library. Amazing feature. So some of the coolest features that they've added in this firmware is a lot of expression pedal customization. So you'll see here that I have my preset set up. I have a standard Mission Engineering expression pedal hooked up to the MC8 itself. And I use this usually to control the volume on my HX Stomp preset. And you'll notice right here, I have a volume block at the end. And if I use the Mission Engineering pedal that's hooked into the MC8, I can control this. So what's interesting about this now, and it may not be as useful for something like a volume control, or maybe it is, they've added the scaling factor. So the ability for us to control and create a custom taper for that pedal. We can see here a graphic of that so that we can either have it very linear or we can have it, move faster from the heel position to the toe or move slower. The way that that's going to be accomplished is with this scaling factor. So if we go look at HX Stomp right now, you'll notice that I have a fairly linear movement here. But if I come back over and change this scaling factor to, let's say, +20, I'll save the preset, and we'll come back over to HX Stomp. You'll notice now how it really jumps very quickly right up to the 70-some% mode before it kind of gets a little more gentle. So very aggressive right off the top. And I can have various degrees of that. If I go to 8, hit save preset again, come back to HX Stomp, you'll notice now that it jumps more to say around 35 and then gets more gentle. So we can really adjust the response of our expression pedal in a very custom way now, and that's an exceptionally cool feature. And the way we can do that is by either picking expression CC with a linear response or with a custom response. If I go back to linear response, we get rid of the ability to customize that, or I can pick custom response. So one of the very, very cool features we have with the expression pedal is the ability now to add toe down and heel down control. And you'll notice here we can send CC messages with toe down or heel down, PC messages with toe down or heel down, and toe down to toggle channels or toe down to toggle CC messages. You might ask, well, what are some of the uses of this? Well, I'm just going to use the CC toe down and heel down. So let's do this. Let's go to CC toe down. Now you'll remember I went to the user library before and I created a wah on and wah off. So I'm going to grab this wah on and I'm going to ask it that every time I go CC toe down that it's going to send on CC number 11 a value of 0. And then we'll come to message 3 and I'll do a CC heel down and I'll open my user library and go to the wah off. So as soon as I hit copy, it populates this. So now if I save that and we come back over to HX edit, and then we assign MIDI bypass to that CC11, what should happen now is when I go to the different heel down and toe down positions, it should engage and disengage the volume block. You'll notice it's off when I just went to toe down, and it's on when I go to heel down. And I think I actually have that labeled backwards over in the editor where it should be the opposite of calling it on or off. Not the point anyways. I think I named them backwards. But the point here is I might not use something like this for a volume pedal, but what if I attach that to my wah pedal and then allowed me to auto-engage my wah every time I went to the heel down position and then disengage it when I go to the toe down position. So it just adds another layer of functionality that could have a lot of really wonderful uses if we know that they're there and how we can program them. Now, one last feature I wanted to talk about is only specifically for the MC3 and the MC6. The MC8 has a much larger screen display on it, and it's always had the ability to have the BPM. So if you're using it to control, say, tap tempo like I am on the HX Stomp, we can see what tempo we're at just always up on the screen. But the screens on the MC3 and the MC6 are much smaller. So by simply doing this under the short name and typing in %BP, what that will actually do now is just on the display screen above, I'm on preset A, it will now display what BPM we're at. Now, it doesn't change the functionality of that switch, okay? So if I save that, I can come over to HX Edit here and you'll see that as I press these buttons, I switch between the different snapshots. So it's not changing the functionality, but what it does do is it just gives us the readout, and it is working here on the MC8 as well. So no longer is this called push for the short name. It now shows 135, which is my present tempo. Now, if I tap tempo that in. I know you guys can't see that, but as I do the tap tempo, it actually changes to reflect what the BPM is at. So that's a really cool function. So we could all, automatically know that that button actually controls snapshot 1, but we also now have a readout for our BPM on our MC3 and our MC6. Probably not something you would use on the MC8 because it already has the ability to show you that. So those are just a few of the amazing new features the fine folks over at Morningstar Engineering have added to their line of MIDI controller pedals. I love these guys. I can't say enough good things about them. I met them at NAMM a few years ago, and I always love stopping by and having some conversation with James and Ben. Really wonderful folks making incredible products, and you just really can't go wrong. They just keep adding so many great features to this lineup. So if you're looking for something to control your HX Stomp, or even an add-on for Helix or Podgo to just make your world a little bit easier, and obviously not just for Line 6 products, it's going to be used with anything that can be controlled by MIDI. So if you have a need for what I would consider to probably be the best MIDI controllers, foot switches out there, please go give my good friends over at Morningstar FX a good look. And before anybody asks, no, they don't pay me to do this. This is not a sponsored post in any way, shape, or form. I just love to keep you guys up to date. I do have a lot of videos in the past about the Morningstar pedals and how to use them with different functions. And I always like to keep everybody up to date with the new features that are added, just in case it can make your life easier when you're controlling the pedals and the devices that you are using in your setup, whatever that may be. So thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Please like the video, share it with anybody who you think would get enjoyment or benefit from watching it. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell notification to get notified when I put new content out. I'll be back really soon with some more. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. Ciao for now.